let's dive right into it and get started with the National Football League. In case you missed it, last night it was a blowout in Pittsburgh. The Steelers beat the Jets, and the final was 37-15. A very impressive performance by Russell Wilson in this game. Naturally, you would not expect the Steelers to make this kind of move to a backup quarterback, but it ended up working out in strong fashion. And after the game, Mike Tomlin extremely impressed with how his players played, not to mention the atmosphere.
Man, nothing like primetime football at Acrisure, man. I'm just really appreciative of the atmosphere and the quality of play. Thought we got stronger as the game went on in all three phases. Man, we made plays in all three phases. Last night we talked about A-player performance, particularly on stages such as this, primetime television and so forth. And I just thought we had a lot of guys that displayed A-player characteristics. Can't say enough about young Beanie Bishop, man. That's an awesome evening, man, for him to get his first 2 interceptions versus a gold jacket guy like Aaron Rodgers, man. We're just appreciative of the work that was done tonight to make the night what it was. Hopefully there's growth in this as we move forward, man. But it's good to get a win. We had a couple of injuries. Mon Adams had a knee injury, wasn't able to return. Dante Jackson had a shoulder injury, wasn't able to return. We had some other bumps and bruises associated with play. But, man, I'm just really appreciative of the efforts of the men.
Steelers get the win. Russell Wilson, no doubt, will start again for them next week. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers has seen a lot of changes with his team, new coach, new wide receivers, but the results have been the same. The Jets are falling out of this thing pretty quickly. Rodgers himself did not have a great game yesterday and admitted so after the game.
It's been a rough stretch since we played so good on Thursday night. We've lost each of those 4 in different ways, but we got to figure it out. Obviously, we added 2 big-time players to the locker room. One's here, one's coming Monday. So, everything's still right in front of us. We got to somehow keep the belief in the locker room and start a run. You can't win 10 in a row unless you win the first one. So we got to be very critical of ourselves, each of us individually, tomorrow, and then come in with the right attitude all week and go to New England and get a win.
How do you get everybody to keep the belief in? It seems like a lot of the same mistakes.
Stop listening to you guys. Number 1. Number 2, got to be accountable. I got to play better. That's the key.
Stop listening to the media. Okay. They tackle the players at the end of the game on Pittsburgh? I don't think so. Anyway, moving on to the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson's going to miss the rest of the season. He had an Achilles injury that he suffered in their game yesterday against the Bengals. It was pretty obvious in watching. Watson, of course, has not played well since going to Cleveland and signing that mega contract. Didn't play particularly well against the Bengals even yesterday. Dorian Thompson-Robinson came in, and he also got hurt. So really unclear as who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns. But more or less, their season is over. They're 1-6 to start the year. The Washington Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels to take them to the promised land. So far, so good. And even without Daniels, Washington clobbered the Carolina Panthers yesterday. Daniels suffered a rib injury. Looks like it could be one of those oblique type deals. He is day-to-day, maybe week-to-week. There's some speculation he could miss this coming week's game, but naturally, Washington's played very well with him. Meanwhile, the World Series is set. It's East versus West. Yankees versus Dodgers. Dodgers had no issue last night closing out the New York Mets, so they move on to the World Series, which will begin on Friday. 10-5 was the final yesterday, and ironically speaking, the American League Championship Series, National League Championship Series, although they were somewhat competitive, were completely different because the NLCS was not. I mean, whoever won the game won big. The ALCS, every game went right down to the wire. But it is a trip back to the World Series, as many predicted at the beginning of the season for LA, and Dave Roberts thankful for that opportunity.
I think they proved to themselves how tough they are. I think that when you get in a position that we were in against a division rival, against a very talented team at that point, it turns into a street fight. And it's, lose and go home, or you just fight like heck. And I think that that's what got us over the top in the DS, and also what bled into the fact, allowed us to finish these guys off in six games.
And there'll be no question that when the series does begin on Friday night, many predicting this to be the highest rated World Series of all time, with the Yankees and Dodgers squaring off. All right, back to the NFL for a minute. The 49ers just can't beat the Chiefs, right? Chiefs win the Super Bowl rematch, 28-18, the final there. Packers beat the Texans, although they did not cover that short spread, 24-22. The Vikings finally lose a game, last-second kick for Detroit. They win 31-29, and the Eagles just dominated the Giants. I believe they had 7 sacks in the game against Daniel Jones, 28-3 the final. Saquon Barkley, 176 yards rushing in that game. Meanwhile, underdogs won a little bit more yesterday, but still the favorites were really the story. Seahawks were the road underdog that ended up winning outright. Falcons were 3-point favorites. Seattle goes on the road. They win with some good offense, also some timely defense. Strip sack for a touchdown on Kirk Cousins, 34-14. The Bills were down 10-0 at the half to Tennessee. They end up winning 34-10. Josh Allen with a big game there. Colts beat the Dolphins 16-10. Dolphins quarterback Snoop Huntley was injured in the game, but Tua Tagovailoa expected to return this week. And meanwhile, the Raiders quarterback issues continue. Rams beat the Raiders. Raiders did cover the number, but there was an announcement this morning that Aiden O'Connell has a fractured finger and is going to miss weeks, not days. So Gardner Minshew, who came back in the game yesterday and threw a couple of picks, he is going to start for the Raiders, although their season seems to be going nowhere. All right, new number 1 in college football, of course, over the weekend. Georgia beat Texas, so that puts Oregon back at number 1. Indiana, I mean, this may be one of their highest rankings in decades. As of right now, they are up to 13. They're undefeated on the season. Georgia, as we mentioned, beat Texas 30-15. Quinn Ewers really struggled in this one. Tennessee beat Alabama late 24-17. Indiana, as we mentioned, crushed Nebraska 56-7. The Hurricanes defense has struggled, but their offense keeps rolling. They're inside the top 10, pushing for a playoff spot. 52-45 was the final there. Cam Ward has had a fantastic season for Miami. And also congrats to the New York Liberty. They end up winning the WNBA championship. Very exciting finish as they capture the title here in the 2024-25 season. All right, tomorrow night, the NBA season opens up. And, of course, we'll have that covered for you. I believe Coach Young will be with us to preview the season and also some games. Let's get to the latest off the court, some last-minute signings and some injuries in the NBA before they fortify the rosters for the season. The Warriors have extended Moses Moody a 3-year contract worth $39 million. He's a role player for Golden State. Plays about 17 minutes a game. He did very well for them last year. Also, Max Strus for Cleveland. He's out again, second straight year, 6 weeks with an ankle sprain. And Precious Achiuwa of the New York Knicks are already missing Mitchell Robinson to start the season. He is going to be out for an extended period of time as well. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. We're joined by Jim Gazzale of Legal Sports Report, and everybody over at LSR getting ready for the election coming up. Not as much for the presidency as it is for the legalization or potential legalization in Missouri. We're going to get to that story here in a minute. Could be the big sports betting story of the year. Jim, first of all, thank you again for coming on Newswire. Good morning to you. Let's get started with the upcoming college basketball season. I know that everyone's very excited for that. Prop betting still getting a lot of attention. And I saw that there was a summit at Siena about the discussion on specifically prop betting for college athletes. It doesn't seem like there's any imminent change to this idea, but I've given my opinion on this before. I think there are so many things, Jim, that you could wager on. I think it's certainly possible that the elimination of college sports prop betting, I think, is upon us. It may not be in 6 months. It may not be in a year. It just seems like there's a lot of steam with this.
Yeah, and we saw a handful of states already take some individual action on outlawing college prop betting within the last year. And Congressman Paul Tonko included an outright ban on college prop betting in his Safe Bet Act that he unveiled with Senator Richard Blumenthal a couple of weeks ago. And Congressman Tonko, he's from my district, actually, up here near Saratoga in upstate New York. And he was in town last week to have a roundtable at Siena College to discuss with the players and coaches there, just to see what sort of, vitriol they're receiving and abusive messages that they're receiving on social media. So a handful of the athletes did say that they have been the victims of, death threats and abusive, threatening messages on social media in regards to prop bets that they, were ultimately unsuccessful in carrying out for these bettors. And we've really seen that sort of abuse on social media really grow and get, to be quite honest, out of hand, really. And that's why a lot of states took some action on this within the last handful of months. Like I said, Tonko's bill, the Safe Bet Act, calls for an outright ban on college prop bet at the federal level. So obviously that would require all the states to back it. But Tonko was in town, talked to a bunch of athletes and coaches, including new Siena head coach Jerry McNamara, who won a national championship with Syracuse back in 2003. And he said that this is a new sort of challenge that current student athletes are facing. He said that he did not face any of this sort of social media backlash really during his playing days. The NCAA, too, they just put out a study last week that found that about 12% of abusive comments on social media directed towards college athletes in the last couple of years were related to sports betting. Like I mentioned, a couple of states, Ohio, Louisiana, Maryland, Vermont, they took action on banning the college prop bets this year. New York, Massachusetts, it's not allowed in either of those states. That was baked into the regulations before those markets even launched. So it remains to be seen what sort of success the Safe Bet Act on its own will have. Was met with some pretty stiff criticism when it was released and formally introduced a couple of weeks ago. In addition to that college prop betting ban, it also calls for regulating sports betting at the federal level with affordability checks, deposit limits, advertising restrictions, as well as limiting the use of AI by sportsbooks. So, Craig, a lot still to come on this Safe Bet Act. This will obviously stretch into the new year. Nothing's going to happen on it before Congress breaks for the year here in the next couple of months after the election. So we'll see what Tonko does with this bill. He did tell me when I spoke to him the other day that they do plan to file this bill again in the new session once the new year begins.
All right. So speaking of elections, there's a very big one coming up, of course, for the president of the United States. But in the state of Missouri, right now, there's nothing you can do to stop the ad campaigns, whether it's on social media or on TV. A lot of opposition to the sports betting bill. A lot of people want sports betting legalized in Missouri. If you're on social media, you're seeing a lot of this, even if you don't live in Missouri as well. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to predict. It feels like, Jim, that this vote is going to be close. I know in all of the pollings that we've seen, most people in Missouri want to legalize sports betting, but it's not like an 80-20 type thing. It seems like 60-40. So no telling how this is going to go, I guess.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the last polling that I looked at recently showed about a 52% rate of support for legalizing sports betting in Missouri. So, at this point, it could be a toss-up, though we did see last week a local news article in Missouri came out that said that the opposition did remove about $1 million worth of TV ads in the lead up to this ballot question that we'll see that first week in November. So that would suggest that perhaps the opposition is seeing some polling that doesn't look like it will go in their favor. But, again, to your point, Craig, I do think it'll be a relatively close vote that, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But in the lead up to all of this, a lot of money has been thrown around. More than $44 million now has been spent both for and against collectively on this ballot question whether or not to legalize sports betting in Missouri. In the last week, we saw Caesars throw in another $6,000 behind the several hundred thousands of dollars that they spent the week before. Caesars, of course, is in opposition of this ballot question. They are not in favor of the language that would, basically allow FanDuel and DraftKings to come into the market, while Caesars already has several land-based casinos in Missouri. Now, on the for side, for voting in favor of the Missouri sports betting legalization, the Sports Betting Alliance contributed about $100,000 to the pro on this ballot question. So we'll see what ultimately happens. Like I said, the opposition did remove a lot of those TV ads last week, and that'll continue obviously until Election Day. And both big newspapers in Missouri have both endorsed the ballot question in favor of legalizing Missouri sports betting. So we'll obviously see what happens, what shakes out when this vote comes to pass in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks away from Super Tuesday. Should be a big one. All right, latest update in New York. Not surprising here. Sports betting operators just bringing in the dough here in the month of September. I mean, football is back. I mean, the Yankees in the playoffs, Mets in the playoffs. A big handle I'm seeing coming in from New York.
Yeah, over $2 billion was bet in September. They went back over the $2 billion mark. Second highest monthly handle figure ever, $2.07 billion bet in September. It was only behind, I believe, maybe January of earlier this year, where it was about 2.11 billion that came in. So second highest handle month ever. Again, the second highest revenue month ever at $204.7 million. So the sportsbooks won nearly $205 million. And as we know, New York has that industry high 51% tax rate. So the bulk of that going back to New York State. But yeah, NFL betting returns. The dollars keep flowing, over $2 billion for New York sports betting apps in September. And, we'll see how that trend continues now throughout the rest of the football season, Craig.
All right, Jim. Well, naturally, the Yankees in the World Series. My guess is it will continue. Thanks again for coming on Newswire. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig.